regularly scheduled city council meeting of January 23rd, 2018. If you'd please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Ziegler.
Here.
Councilmember Beagle.
Here.
Councilmember Gatto.
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Resnick.
Here.
Councilmember Smiling.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No, Mayor, I have no changes or additions.
Okay. Up here, Mr. Gatchell.
Thank you. As new business number 2, I would like to add a proposal to accept applications for the city council vacancy.
Well, it doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. Perhaps that should be number 1, since there's something already on the agenda relating to that. That may be rendered moot.
I didn't want to move your agenda item, so.
Oh, okay, well, I'll move yours to number 1. All right. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see if you had number 2, which he suggested.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be number 1. All right?
Just by your own vote, huh?
I'm running the meeting.
Okay.
Excuse me. So you got a second here? Okay. All right, number 1 on the, under new business will be this notion of, what did you call it?
Application process for the city council vacancy.
Application process, city council vacancy. All right, any others? Okay, none. This evening we have, beginning of the meeting, we have a presentation. It's a proclamation to Mr. Jeff Keel for his years of service on the DDA. Mr. Keel, please come up. You're retired, pretty young to be retired.
Well, gotta change my career.
All right. I'll read this into the record. Proclamation. Whereas Jeff Keel, his wife Eileen, and his son Todd have lived in the city of Wixom for more than 20 years, and whereas Jeff Keel is self-appointed or self-employed as a professional audio contractor in the city of Wixom, and whereas Jeff Keel was appointed to the Downtown Development Authority in July of 2011, and whereas while a member of the DDA, Jeff Keel enjoyed learning the purpose of the DDA and how it functions. He also found gratification in providing services and support to the city of Wixom, as well as watching it grow. And whereas Jeff Keel produced several events for the city of Wixom, including the Forbidden Art Display. And whereas, although he is still working in the city of Wixom, Jeff Keel resigned from the Downtown Development Authority in December 2017 to spend more time with his business and to give others a chance to serve the city and in this capacity. And whereas Jeff Keel hopes that there is a great focus on the newest social media methods for the Downtown Development Authority. He also hopes that the city of Wixom will continue to attract new businesses and homeowners. Now therefore, the mayor and the council of the city of Wixom hereby extend their sincere appreciation from his fellow DDA board members, elected officials, and staff of the city of Wixom to Jeff Keel upon his retirement as a Downtown Development Authority board member. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sit down.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regularly city council meeting minutes of January 9th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Support?
I have a motion and a support. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Correspondence. There are 3 items of correspondence that were placed on everybody's desk here. 3 of them, I'm not going to read them into the record. I will describe them, though. One is from Vera Stolagros, from Ricky Ann Lane, a street in Wixom, indicating that she's a resident and that she is supportive of the appointment of Sandro Grassi to the city council. I have another one from a Lorraine Strope of Warrior Drive in Wixom. She too sends a letter of support for Sandro Grassi for his appointment to the city council. And a third one from Mary and Bruce O'Neill, also from Helfer Boulevard in Wixom, also expressing their support for Sandro Grassi and his appointment to city council this evening. There is no other correspondence. Next on the agenda is the call to the public. It's the first call to the public. Let me read the rules for public speaking. The public shall address city council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the city council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority of vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the city council. Before I open that up, I forgot to mention, and I meant to mention this, excuse me, I don't know if everybody probably noticed, but we have Walled Lake TV filming this evening. So just, I wanted to make that announcement so that everybody's aware of that. It's my understanding, though, that they will not be focused on the podium during the call to the public, so I just thought I'd mention that. Anybody wishing to address the council this evening on any agenda items?
Yes, me. I'm Sandro Grassi, 2150 Ivona, Wixom. It's about the appointment. I grew up in this city. I've lived here for quite some time, been around for about 30 years, over 30 years. I work here. I'm part of 2 businesses, one being with my mother and father at Alex's Pizza, the other with my brother at Volare. My children go to school in this town. Also, I have to write some stuff down here. But I just want to make it known that, you know, I have my roots in this town. For those of you that don't know, I served as a reserve police officer for several years, currently serve on the Planning Commission, and it's important for me to know that the people gathered here tonight know how much this community means to me. As I said before, I grew up here, and now my children are growing up here. Wixom has made me who I am, and is a part of my identity. I ran for city council twice, not because I needed the status or because I was bored. It's because I know I can represent the community's ideas and voice concerns that that might not otherwise be heard. I know some people didn't want me to come tonight. In fact, someone was bold enough to imply it would be a waste of my time because he was certain my nomination wouldn't happen. But I'm here anyway because there are people here that do think I can make a good council member. Thank you for your time and your consideration. And you know, I kind of see where this is coming from. you know, but, I just wanna make it known that, you know, I don't, you know, play for this side or play for that side, and, you know, I play for the home team, which is Wixom and, you know, everybody over here, so, that's, you know, pretty much what I'd like to tell you guys right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Monahan. I've lived in Wixom for 25 years. My address is 1630 Way Hill Drive. And I'd like to address the council today with regards to Sandro. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to the mayor and to the council members that ran and for successful this time. I'd like to thank you all for your continued service. I don't know why you'd like to keep doing it, but you do it, and I'm amazed by it. I'm a troubled voter, and please let me explain why. Recently, I ran into Sandro at he's a Wixom citizen, he's a Wixom businessman, he's a person that ran for the city council twice. I congratulated him on his victory, and soon learning after a short conversation that something wasn't right. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to direct this following question to you. When a mayor or council term is over, the city has an open spot, am I correct?
Correct.
And when you ran unopposed for mayor, which means one vote, which would have been yours, you become mayor, your spot was open, am I
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Why is it that Sandro is not sitting on the fourth open seat up there tonight? He had the fourth highest number of votes, far ahead of the fifth person. He had over 400 votes, and the next fifth person was 200 and some. He's run twice. I believe that he has not only earned the seat, I believe that the voters elected him. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to?
Good evening. My name is Michael Giddings. I've resided for approximately 20 years at 1390 North Creek Drive in Wixom, Michigan. This is about Mr. Grossi's appointment, and I'm here to voice support for the appointment of Sandro Grossi for the open seat on the City Council. I've personally been acquainted with his family for nearly 30 years now and have known Sandro since before the elections in 2015. Sandro is a family man, a business owner who cares deeply about our community. Whenever we've had time to talk about city issues, he's always expressed optimism and a strong desire to get more involved in an effort to make a difference and maintain a strong municipal government. Sandro has served the city and the community for several years now and has had a persistent desire to step up his role in civic leadership since at least 2015 that I know. At times, city council can be a place where personalities and politics are blended. I believe that Sandro is a man wise beyond his years and will bring a sensible voice of reason to any situation that may arise as council moves forward with its agenda. I strongly support the recommendation of Mr. Grossi to fulfill the remaining term on the open seat on council. It seems eminently important to have a complete roster on the dais. And I just close by saying, I think that the voters of this city should be very, very concerned if this council can't bring itself together to fill this seat without the expense and the drama of a special election. It would be very, very unfortunate to find out that people are voting against this appointment or some other method, as is alluded to this evening, to fill this seat. 6 responsible people up here should be able to fill this seat without a special election. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to?
Chuck Villeneuve. I've lived in Wixom for 21 years, and I was able to meet Sandro about 3 years ago. And we spoke a little bit, and I voted for him then. And I was surprised that he chose to run again for councilman, and he did. And I'm saying that he deserves a shot at this 4th councilman. I think we're wasting time by coming up with some fancy application for people that want to be councilmen. Let's get with the business, put them in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valerie York, 581 Hampton Court. And so I guess I'll start off by saying that I served this city in the capacity of a police officer for almost 28 years. During that time, I was able to get to know Sandro quite well because, as he stated, he was a reserve police officer for several years. What I can tell you about Sandro is that well, first of all, you might imagine that not just anybody will sign up to be a police officer for free, which is what Sandro did. He felt that strongly about it. To be appointed as a reserve police officer, you have to go through an academy of sorts. It's not the full police academy that a regular officer would go through, but it's an abbreviated one. And they're expected to maintain certain standards, obviously, in order to graduate from this academy. What I can tell you is that Sandro always represented the City of Wixom Police Department and the City of Wixom as a whole very professionally. He made good decisions. He doesn't just fly by the seat of his pants, so to speak. He makes thoughtful, well-informed, well-intended decisions, and for that reason, in addition to the fact that Sandro has expressed such interest, not just recently, but for years, to be sitting on this city council. And so for that reason, I think and I hope that you will all agree that Sandro should be appointed to that open seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward?
No, you go.
Good evening. My name is Mary Kraus, and I live in Wixom also. I have not had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman, but I've heard a lot of really good things about him. And when I heard that there was going to be an attempt to have a special election, I guess, I felt very concerned about that because now everybody that's been up here has said everything that I would have wanted to say, but I think that the fact that the people of Wixom voted and he came into 4th place says that they want him to be there. And I guess I would like to hear why he is not wanted in that position. And I think everybody should know that. And that's it.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to?
Lori Rich, 50140 Helfer Boulevard. I really don't want to be here tonight. I've done my time up there and I don't necessarily want to repeat that. But I've got a couple of comments, and strictly off the cuff, I haven't written anything down, and I kind of wish that I had to some extent. But my thoughts are off, like I said, off the cuff. I don't know Sandro. I don't need to know him. Logically, my brain tells me that there should be some weight given to that he was the top vote getter that didn't get a seat. My heart also tells me, and my experience also tells me, that this has long been a dilemma for council. I sat up there for 10 years. and it was always side-oriented. So one of my comments is going to be a challenge to each of you sitting up there holding a seat representing the great residents of Wixom, that you need to stop discussing items before a meeting and just show up with your own independent thoughts. Do some research, equip yourselves without talking amongst yourselves, so you can help set the city on a course of eliminating allegiance and a side perspective. Because to me, that's where I see this as going, is there's one side that's kind of come together and thought about things one way, and there's another side that's kind of come together and thought about things another way. So let logic and let facts, things like that he ran was a top vote getter, that should give you some weight, I said that earlier. Let that take more precedence, and let your own independent thoughts take more residence, and stop trying to come to the city council meeting with a predetermined kind of consensus as to what you're going to do. We need to get the city away from the side perspective and pitting us against them, and putting the city's best interests first. And until we get to that day, it's going to take each of you to individually to be strong individuals. I wish we had a strong individual who could run and was willing to kind of like make that their slate, and to put that out there, that that's who I am and that's what I'm going to do, because council needs that. They had that in the past in a couple of strong individuals who weren't necessarily well liked at the time, but that is their reputation. That is what they were known to do. This council doesn't have that as a reputation for any one of the individuals sitting up there. It's us against them. That's all you're known for, and that doesn't bode well for the city moving forward. So look at this not only from an appointment perspective, but how can you equip yourselves individually to be better at your job and to be better position the city in terms of every decision that comes before you. And I beg you, don't talk to each other before a meeting, because that's not helping. It's actually hurting the city. And then if I could put one other thing out there, this would be perhaps for the mayor to contemplate moving forward. Things like this would be a lot easier if we had heard you discuss the item first. So if there's a way to change the charter, to kind of like change public hearing to be an agenda item driven, I'd be on board with that. Because my comments are one thing, but my comments would be better tailored if I could have heard you talk first. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the public this evening? You look familiar.
Kinda. Good evening. Kevin Hinckley, 3250 Johanna Ware. I'd like to convey my support for Mr. Sandro Grassi for filling the current vacant city council seat. He's the right choice for many reasons. Mr. Grassi's taken the time and effort for 2 elections to gather the 40-plus signatures required to get his name on the ballot. He finished 4th place 2 times in the last 2 elections, so he has the support of the Wixom voters. He has current knowledge of the activities going on in the city from his experience on the Planning Commission. He knows the meeting protocol with Robert's Rules of Order. Doesn't have to be trained, doesn't have to be sent off to the school. When I retired my position as mayor, I reminded council to keep making sound decisions. Going out in the community to seek resumes for the vacancy is not a sound practice. These are elected positions. And Sandro finished 4th and has shown his interest and has done his due diligence. If you force the city into A special election, which I've looked into, that isn't gonna happen. You have to do the election, and if you ask the clerk, in August. So it would be with the primary. So you'll put this city in gridlock with the 6 of you up there for 8 months, because you don't have that 7th vote. And we deserve that 7th vote as a city. Our budget's coming. Councilman Beagle's talked about for many years, pre-budget meetings, and you need 7 people here for those pre-budget meetings, and you need 7 people on that council for that budget. It's the biggest thing that you do for this city as a council person, is our budget and spend our money. So I really don't care as a resident about your feelings for this person or that person or whatever. Listen to Councilwoman Rich. Set that aside. That's a very good point. Again, in the best interest of the city, put the city first. Be leaders. I told you that when I retired. Be leaders, not politicians. Don't get wrapped up in making the decision that jeopardizes the residents for a long-awaited election in August. Select Sandro, and you won't be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael McDonald, 2005 Lamella. You know, the hypocrisy here is so thick. I'm glad we're talking about wastewater treatment plant stuff. Because when Mr. Hinckley defeated me, Colleen Broderick ran, and she was the 4th highest vote getter, and they decided to put Jim Cutright in the position on the council. And I do believe that some of the people sitting here and who are commenting decided to put Jim Cutright on when Colleen Broderick ran for council and she was the 4th vote getter. So if all these people have any conscience, they wouldn't be up here touting, oh, we should do it one way or the other. The council should decide how they want to replace that person and what's the best way to do it. Don't fall victim to these people that did it one way and now they want you to do it another. Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the council this evening? Going once, going twice? I'll close the call to the public. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the city manager's reports. We've got two reports to discuss this evening. The first is the departmental reports, December 2017. Anybody have any questions, comments? The second, I'm sorry, Mr. Gotcha.
In the community services report, I noticed it looked like the fireworks sponsorships were down by almost half. And I was just wondering if we knew why and what we were going to try and do in the future. Because I know generating for concerts and especially fireworks has been a target for us. So to see that go down is a little bit concerning.
I don't know if Deanna's here. I don't have a direct answer on the numbers as to why they were down. Perhaps Deanna's got something to say about it.
Each year when we issue the sponsorships, we give the companies the opportunities to choose what they do. Some years they rotate who they sponsor and who they don't. One factor that has good and bad is one of our key sponsors for the fireworks was Total Sports that turned his sponsorship to the DBA program. So he's still sponsoring within the city, but it's not under the fireworks category, it's under DBA.
Okay. All right, thank you. I did notice concerts went up by almost the same amount too. Thank you.
Anybody else? The other report is the monthly budget report, July of 2017. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. We'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a support. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes. There is no unfinished business. The first item under new business is this application process. Mr. Gatchell.
Thank you. I created an outline if you want to pass this down.
Sure.
So something that I had seen done by a lot of our neighboring communities, Wolverine Lake, Commerce, South Lyon, and then other Metro Detroit, including Berkeley, and then even other places in the UP like Marquette, is when they have a vacancy at any point on council, they immediately open up an application process for all residents to apply to the position. And from there, they call in all the applicants, they ask a standard set of questions, open questioning up from other council members, and then have a discussion. That way they can do things in a public setting, public meeting, ask questions of all the applicants that are interested. And that is something that I think we should begin to implement as well, since most other communities that I've done my research about follow a similar method instead of appointing just somebody without any application process. So what I had kind of outlined in the outline, I guess, is a timeline if this were to be accepted for this particular vacancy. To start accepting applications tomorrow through the close of business on the 7th of next month. Then those applications to be delivered to city council members so we can review them, and then at the first regular meeting of February, which would be the 13th, we can have the interview portion with all the applicants, and then have discussion and make a decision hopefully, and then have swearing in, since according to the charter it's effective immediately. So I'd imagine that timeline keeps us within having to go to special election, which this seeks to avoid. The application is something we already have with the boards and commissions applications, and just potentially adding an option to keep applications confidential if applicants wish. That's something that we do with city manager hires and whatnot, and I think that should be offered to anybody that wants to apply as well. And then just in terms of advertising, I listed a few of my thoughts on how we can try and get the word out to residents that are interested in applying, and how to apply, where to find the application. So those are my thoughts. That's my proposals, that we implement an application process. And I'm not sure if anybody has questions about the outline I put together. I know it's the first anybody saw it, so. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Just a couple of comments. One is, in a way, the vacancy application meeting, or advertising, occurred already, and that was prior to April 25th, when we had announced a general election, and there was a deadline set for the polling and filing of petitions and a signed affidavit with your declaration to run for city council. 5 people completed those requirements. 5 people turned those in by the April 25th deadline. If the vacancy was caused by a felony or change in residency, I can see us looking at another process that we might consider as part of amendment to our city charter. But this vacancy occurred as a result of an election that was held 2 months ago, right? The applicants went through the process, filing the petitions, getting the affidavit signed, campaigning, running, spending some money on signs, or going door to door, or whatever they did. And residents spoke through the election. The I was thinking, and I was thinking independently on the night of the election. I pulled out my iPad and I went through the charter, and I said, you know, our U.S. Constitution's been amended 27 times. Our Michigan Constitution, and there's been 4 of them since our state was conceived, it's been amended 8 times since its 1963 adoption. Our city charter, the last time it was changed was 1987. That's 30 years ago. If I were one of the authors of the current charter, I might have said, should a vacancy on city council occur as a result of a sitting council member obtaining the position of mayor, then that seat shall be filled by the 4th vote getter if 4 or more people were on the ballot. And then the default, if it was a vacancy due to a felony charge or a residency change or something like that, that could fall back to alternate wording in the charter. So I think we should consider something like this with a charter change at some point. But I think the people have spoken. The election was only 2 months ago. And the 4th place vote getter is the one that I feel should get it. So I would not support this at this time.
Okay. Mr. Smiley, you go on.
I wanted to mention that, yeah, since this vacancy came up a couple months ago now, it's kind of funny. We've noticed that there's 3 communities all around us, adjacent to us, that, you know, are going through this, you know, for one reason or another. And South Lyon, Commerce, and Wolverine Lake, and I think Wolverine Lake's done it in the past as well. And it seemed to happen with a deal of success. So I like this idea. I think it's let's see what Wixom's got.
Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My thoughts on this is this process is open and transparent. As Councilman Resnick said, there was an election. The elections are over. More than 50% of the people that voted did not vote for that 4th person. And we are here to represent the people. Therefore, I don't think I in conscience could actually vote to have someone here that more than 50% of the people that voted didn't vote for. The neighboring communities, Commerce, Wolverine Lake, South Lyon, are all doing the same process. This is an open application so everybody can see it. You talk about city charters in the city of Novi. This is the way it is written in the city of Novi's charter, exactly like this. When it comes to elections, the date of the elections are over. And everything else from there on is a new start. In retrospect, to make what is possible for the people in the city of Wixom, to give them the best opportunity, I see no problem with taking applications, open so everybody can see who's putting it in, and let us vote from there. I've had actually one constituent come to me and sat there and they were questioning, not that this ever happened, but how is it that no one else ran for mayor? Was it something, this is someone that's a little more paranoid than I am. Is it something that was set up? And if it was set up, is the Sandro thing also a setup because they knew he didn't have to run real hard, all he had to do was be 4th on the ballot? So with those kind of thoughts and conspiracy theories or whatever you want to call them, I think this is better that we have an open and transparent process to everybody in the city. Thank you very much.
Mr. Beagle, you have it.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I've heard a lot of talk about the surrounding cities and how they're doing it, but they have a policy in place. And I've been giving this a lot of thought. In fact, I even was meeting with the city attorney 5 minutes before the meeting. Number one, the timeline that we have here for this application process is a little bit too aggressive for me. I think we have some legal issues that we need to work out first before we send any applications out. We don't have a policy in place right now, and that's the problem we're going through right now. So, past practice is we've taken the 4th vote getter. I think that's what we should do tonight, is that, and then whether the policy be an application, the 4th highest vote getter, we play rock, paper, scissors, whatever it is, but we have something in the future that we can use to eliminate the problem that we're having tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, excuse me, we're kind of mixing things up a little bit here because frankly, we can't go to talk about two unless we talk about one and vice versa. So I guess I'm gonna have to talk about them kind of in combination with one another. You know, I know that Mr. Resnick was on the ballot here last November, and I think that, I know that if Mr. Resnick had ended up fourth on the ballot, I'd be sitting here recommending that Mr. Resnick be appointed to take the vacant position. I know that Mr. Beagle was on the ballot in November, and I know that if he came in fourth, I'd be sitting here recommending that he be the one that is chosen to fill the vacant position. If Mr. Kennedy was on the ballot, and Mr. Kennedy, if he had come in fourth, I'd be sitting here, perhaps reluctantly, but I would be sitting here saying that he should be appointed to the position, the vacant position. I think that the points that are made by this proposal they're good ideas. It's a good idea to have a process in place on an unexpected vacancy, and I think that that's something that we should look at down the road. I think it's something that we need to address and need to, and perhaps as Mr. Resnick indicated, maybe we need a revision of the charter in some areas, that being one of them, because there isn't anything in the language of the charter that gives us anything direct to go by. Maybe we need to address that in a charter revision or a change in policy going forward, but and it should be, a policy like this, I think, should be directed toward unexpected vacancies that occur, and I think those are some of the vacancies that occurred over in Wolverine Lake that we're talking about, that you were talking about, and South Line and places like that. Most of those are unexpected vacancies that there hadn't been in a recent election. Nobody applied to run for mayor at all in South Line last year. So I think that maybe something has to be done for the future, but for the present, I think that that we are where we are, and I would not support this type of thing now on this particular vacancy. Has everybody said everything they have to say? Okay. Mr. Gotcha.
Thanks. I did just want to clarify, I guess, going back to the last time there was a vacancy, the fourth place vote getter was not the person appointed. It was a formal council member. So there's no precedent for taking the fourth place. Mr. Grassi approached me after the election and asked about the position, and I mentioned to him about looking into open applications, and it was something that he expressed he would apply for, which I would welcome. I just wanted to ask the city attorney, I guess, what are the legal issues, if there are any, accepting applications?
There aren't. I mean, if that's the process you set up. I mean, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Mr. Beagle had said that there were legal issues that would.
I think he said within the time frame that was.
Within the time frame of basically accepting applications for a few weeks and then interviewing and having this voted on by February 13th.
I don't necessarily know if there's legal issues per se, but I think that's a timeline that's probably not realistic. I mean, you don't even have an application form put together. There hasn't been an agreement as to what questions you would ask the applicants to answer.
Do you think that would take any great amount of time to set up a list of questions?
I don't know. But, I mean, he was talking about having the application ready tomorrow. Obviously, that won't happen. But it's just, it's a very, very optimistic schedule to meet your timeline.
I don't disagree. Unfortunately, we lost the first meeting of the year with 2 council members out of town. It would have been nice to address this then. But in terms of the actual application, just using what we have existing with our boards and commissions and adding potentially a checkbox for applicants to allow their actual application to remain confidential if they request that. So we have the paperwork already done. We've been using it for God knows how long.
Okay, so I just don't know, I haven't seen those
Yep.
before.
Okay.
So, it's just, like I said, that's a pretty difficult timeline. What are you gonna do, a couple of things to think about. What if you have 50 people apply?
I doubt if we will, but you know what? We can go through the applications or the resumes, and I'm sure people that are applying have a resume, and
I mean,
we could look at,
yeah, because I think you said you would, the policy, what you were proposing is you would interview every single person that applied. And I think that's probably gonna really make the process more difficult. It seems to me if you were going to go with the process, you'd have to have an in-between step of paring down the applicants for interview.
Okay.
So that would require an additional meeting to be set. So there's just things like that you would have to, you know, you have to work out and make sure that you had proper notice of all the meetings, you know, because they would be public meetings and things like that, so. Just,
Yeah, this was a starting point for discussion, so.
yeah, so it is a short time frame to try to do it.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you had pointed out, this would be something to look at later down the road to do the right thing. I think doing the right thing now is the right thing. There's no reason to kick this can down the road. And as Councilwoman Lori Rich had said, that when applications are made, we give weight to certain applications. The fact that Sandro Grassi did take the time to run would definitely have weight, in my opinion, to any approval process. But the thing is, again, it's my suggestion that it be open and transparent to the public. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Mr. Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there's a lot of great points on both sides here, I'm stuck with, you know, there is no precedent. We definitely need to get something in the charter, you know, after we figure this out, but there's no precedent either way. Have we ever taken a fourth place? Sounds like there's 2 instances where we didn't. Was there a case where we did take the 4th place person? Anybody? Anybody know? We don't know. We're not saying that there wasn't, but there was 2 instances where there was an opening and someone else was chosen other than 4th place.
I don't know.
Do we agree with that?
I don't know.
Just one.
Does anybody know? Just,
It was the same.
You were here when they put up Jim Cutright,
It was the same case, so.
you know.
oh, there was one. This has
Bill
only happened
Wiley.
once before.
Bill Wiley was the 4th vote east.
Bill Wiley, oh, so there's been 1 for and 1 on the other side. 1 for each.
Okay.
Okay, it'd be great if there was a precedent, we could just say, well, that's, you know, a way we can go to kind of get us through this, you know, mini problem. Thanks, I was looking for some clarification, I didn't get it.
Mr. Resnick?
Just as a point of reference, I believe when, last January, when Clarence announced he'd be stepping down, I think we were probably 90-plus days on the total process, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Brown.
For the hiring?
Yeah. What was your
Yeah,
first
that's
date?
right.
What was your first date?
I was hired in April 18th, I believe, so it was about a 3-month period, yeah.
So about 90-plus, I think, yeah. And that was with only 12 applicants, paring down, so.
Just to point
And
out.
small committee, yeah.
I would recommend, as the attorney said, I would second what she had to say, that you would have to probably pare down the applications depending on the number, of course. But if you had a large number, you'd certainly want to pare them down instead of doing an interview for everybody. That would add some additional meetings, as she mentioned, but depending on the number of applicants, that would probably be wise.
Mr. Gotchel?
Would it be comfortable with anyone then if we made the 13th the kind of, if we have a lot of applications and we don't want to interview everyone, maybe then we have a decision on who we want to interview and we bring them back for the next meeting, which would still keep us out of a special election? what's listed, I guess, as the 13th becomes the, what is that, 22nd maybe? And then the 13th is, if needed, the whittled down
Well, you know,
27.
in response, you know, we're just, these questions that are going back and forth, to me, I think an awful lot of things would be up for interpretation. What I mean by that is that you're talking about whittling down applications. Who's gonna whittle them down?
Well, the city council.
Well, how do you know that, we can't even decide on this? How are we gonna whittle down? I'm not gonna whittle down the same people you're gonna whittle down. So I think that the whole thing is a little bit naive, perhaps, to think that something like this could happen in a short period of time, but that's just my thought. In any event, is there, anybody has anything else to add to this discussion? Or I feel a little bit, I don't know where we go from here. If everybody's said everything they're going to say, I guess we'll move on to the next item.
Well, there was a proposal, I guess, to accept this outline.
I never heard a second.
I second it.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
The amendment's gonna be, if needed, to have the 13th.
Oh, you want to make an amendment? Make it clear to the clerk, please.
What I had just explained with, if needed, we will go to the 22nd to interview and potentially make a decision based on the number of applications we receive. If it's a limited number, the manageable number, then we'll do it on the 13th. I
Okay.
second the amendment.
Okay, amendment is second. Do we need to vote on the amendment first? All right, all in favor of the change in the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Councilmember Beagle?
No.
Councilmember Batchel?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnick?
No.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Ziegler?
No. We have a motion to, yes.
If someone's
Mr. Gaddis.
amending their own motion, I don't believe that requires a vote, since I'm the motion maker.
Oh, okay. Well, then erase that. I guess,
Vote again?
whatever.
Who's our parliamentary procedures person? Is it the lawyer or is it the clerk or?
It's
Could I
typically the
speak into your
clerk,
microphones,
actually.
please? I don't know the answer to that question.
We have a lawyer here. How does it usually work?
Well, typically, it's a little less formal. When somebody's amending, then that just becomes basically the original motion. The same person's amending it, it becomes just
Oh,
one
okay.
motion.
All right, so then we should just have a vote on
Yeah,
the
exactly.
policy as amended.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, typically, somebody else might add an amendment to the motion.
All right, thank you.
So,
I apologize. We have this proposal, the application process outlined, provided, and as amended. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Councilmember Batchel?
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnick?
No.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Ziegler?
No.
Councilmember Beagle?
No.
Motion fails. Going to the next item on the agenda, number 2, is the consideration of the confirmation of the mayor's recommendation to appoint Sandro Grassi to the vacant council seat effective immediately and with a term expiring November 11th, 2019 in accordance with the charter. This has already been discussed pretty much at length, but I feel it necessary that I go through it again.
Doesn't Doesn't there have to be a motion before we start discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
You did last time.
I'm still new at this.
You didn't
Do I
on
have
the
a
last
motion?
one.
So moved.
All right. Thanks for keeping me straight here, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
Yeah, I've known Sandro a long time, and I know that he'd be a great council member. But bottom line is, he came in with 660 votes, 1,500 people, approximately 1,500 people who cast ballots in the last election. I think he's earned it. I think the public wants it. I think that we need to have him here. And I certainly support this and trust that the appointment will be forthcoming. Anybody have any comments? Mr. Resnick?
Yeah, I'll just round out what I mentioned before is that while I think our charter is very vague, I think it's worthwhile taking another look at it. And I said, had I been the author back in '87 when we were doing the amendment, it would have been something that would have been good to take a look at because we have faced it, as Ms. Rich has pointed out several times in the past few decades. So I think it's worthy of taking a look at on a longer front, but I think because the vacancy was caused by an election of a city council member to a position of mayor, that the people have gone to the polls and they have voted. And you had 660 people, and it put him clearly in the fourth place. And so I'm in favor of this proposal, and we'll support it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I would like to state that even though they have 660 votes, that more than 50%, quite a majority, more than 50%, did not vote for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, I think that that it would be, frankly, unconscionable for us not to approve this motion. I think as many of the people spoke this evening, and as the letters that we received before the council meeting, I think the electorate expects us to do this. I think our citizens expect us to do this. And I think that if it doesn't happen, I think that we should be ashamed of ourselves, frankly. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Councilmember Kennedy?
No.
Councilmember Resnick?
Yes?
Councilmember Smiley?
No.
Mayor Ziegler?
Yes.
Councilmember Beagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall?
No.
Motion fails. All right.
Can I, Mayor,
Elections have consequences.
can I comment, please? Obviously, this is going to elections, so I think we should get working probably as soon as possible on putting together a policy and/or charter amendment. So do you want me to take a stab at putting something together first and for you to review and comment, or what is the preference?
I can give you a copy of the outline as well.
I wrote your stuff down, but I can propose some alternatives based on, what a lot of other communities are doing, but we, just in case something is to happen, we don't want to go through this again, so,
I would like that part.
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
I'll get working on it then.
But that's, there's 6 people here.
Huh?
Not everyone agreed with that, you want to get a.
Oh, no, this is the moving forward policy.
I know
think
that, but I'm just
everybody
saying,
agreed with
I
that,
don't
didn't they?
have authority to direct you to do that on my own, or.
Yeah, no, the sense I got was everybody knew something, or thought something should be put in place for the future. Is that correct? Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, is for the future, so.
Very good.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is the appointment of the deputy mayor in accordance with the Wixom City Council Charter Chapter 4, Section 4-7. I make a motion to appoint Tom Resnick to the position of deputy mayor. Discussion?
I'd like to support or nominate Pat Beagle for the position.
I'd second that.
Well,
Great.
well,
If you want, we'll vote on the first one and vote again.
Oh, I'm out
it's-
of order, sorry.
having trouble following you here.
You have a motion on the table.
I'm asking discussion. Do you have a discussion on it? We just had a motion, we had a second. We're talking about this particular issue.
Right.
Do you have any comments on the issue?
I made a comment that I'd like to see Pat Beagle as the.
But that's not the issue. That could, if this goes down, then perhaps we'll talk about a second motion.
Well, does the bank?
So I,
Well,
Pardon me?
out of sequence here. One.
I would think so.
Okay. Unless the maker of the motion wants to withdraw the motion,
Right.
so
He
it's up
does.
to you. Yeah.
And I don't, but I'll wait.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor
There
of,
was some more discussion, or?
well,
You were down there talking with, I apologize.
oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate that. As I feel that Councilman Resnick is a fine councilman, I do know that his business, along like my business, takes me away from city council meetings quite a bit. And with that being the case, I think that would be an issue that should be considered. Nothing to reflect on how fine a Councilman Resnick is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else have discussion? We have a motion on the table and a second to appoint Mr. Resnick as deputy mayor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No.
Councilmember Resnick?
Approach the city attorney, am I allowed to vote?
You can actually vote for yourself if you want.
Yes, you can. All right. Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
No.
Mayor Ziegler?
Yes.
Councilmember Beagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
No.
Councilmember Kennedy?
No.
Welcome to the Wall.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to make Pat Beagle deputy mayor.
So, support.
Oh, we have a motion and a second discussion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Beagle. All right. Next item on the agenda is the emergency repair and return activated sludge and waste activity solid waste at the wastewater treatment plant to be completed by Suez, the City of Wixom's contract operator, for the price not to exceed $29,689. Do I have a motion?
So-
Support?
Discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Tim?
Just reiterating that we have 4 valves that need replacement. We thought that just the leaks that were there could be corrected, and that's not true. So they're getting worse, and we need to fix them very soon.
Mr. Resnick?
Tim, in terms of the asset management plan then, is this, what is the frequency, replacement frequency on the asset management plan for these valves?
Typically valves should last 20, 25 years, and these are critical ones for the treatment plant. The reason that there is an expense like this is so great is because multiple processes have to be shut down while we drain the pipes, and they were critical aspects of it. Our asset management plan will recognize these types of things in the future, but usually you can replace replace one valve at a time, and it just goes through as just a one-time replacement. But these are a little different in that the sequence, they're the primary valves, if you will.
And these are the original valves?
These are the original valves from 1993.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation to award the bid for replacement of the police department's police door access control system to the lowest qualified bidder, PCT Security of Clinton Township, Michigan, for the sum of $36,244 and associated budget amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Discussion? Mr. Gatchel.
Just between this and the next one, it looked like this came mostly from our IT department. Are these systems not working at all? It said not serviceable, which I take to mean working, but maybe for not much longer, can't be worked on afterwards.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. There's two projects that are very similar in scope. The first is for the police department, and that's to replace the existing door locking systems. They've reached end of life, and they're no longer serviceable. So that's the first agenda item that you're looking at for the police department. The next agenda item is to expand that same type of technology throughout the city. So what we did was we looked to see if there was economies by extending the same type of service materials to City Hall, the library, community center, and DPW.
I guess just are the locks or key card systems, they don't work at all, or they're just old?
Both. They're no longer functioning correctly, and parts are no longer available for them.
Because a part of the struggle, and I brought it up when we had the parking lot vote a few months ago, was I noticed that a part of the funding is coming from budget stabilization, and that's something that I didn't want to see then with parking lots, and I kind of knew that it was gonna get us into a situation where we continue to see other projects pop up with the funding source being budget stabilization, and before we know it, the fund that's supposed to be there to get us through tough times doesn't exist anymore, isn't very useful. So between both these projects, it was a little over 60,000 coming out of budget stabilization, which we just cut that fund in more than half with the last parking lot project. So I'm not in favor of this as it's funded now. I'm not sure if we have another fund we can pull this out of, whether it's seizure or if we can use funds from somewhere else, other capital improvement funding. But, I mean, priority-wise, if this was something we needed to be focused on immediately, then I would have rather done that than parking lots or maybe not the senior center, but all of the community service area. So that's just, my difficulty is now we're getting into the slippery slope of where do we cut ourselves off from dipping into the piggy bank? And right now it doesn't look like there is gonna be a cutoff point.
Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I also would like to know, why is this under the budget stabilization fund?
The Budget Stabilization Fund is there for a variety of reasons. I guess it's a philosophical question for administration, and when I make a recommendation or the administration makes a recommendation for council to consider as well. So Budget Stabilization Fund is there to, as Councilman Goschel mentioned, be there when times are tough, when funds are short, and those kind of things. I also advocate that it would be appropriate for this kind of usage because it's a needed capital improvement that isn't currently budgeted.
Capital improvement.
Correct.
Should be coming out of capital
Correct.
improvement, I would think.
Right, but it's not budgeted in capital improvement for this fiscal year. So when something comes up, you don't have money allocated for it, I advocate using the budget stabilization fund for it. I mean, it's clearly, you know, when the last installation lasted for 27, 28 years, that's a capital item, I'm not disputing that. But the money's currently not budgeted in the capital items, so that's the reason for the use of the budget stabilization fund.
So don't we have a fund where we can transfer money out of it to fund budget items like, I mean, unfunded budget items like this? That is not the, our stabilization fund?
I mean, normally for these type of instances, if the budget stabilization wasn't used, we would transfer funds from general operating fund.
Okay.
That's-
Do we have the funds available in general operating funds?
I don't have, most likely there would be.
Okay.
That would just deter a future contribution to budget stabilization of leftover funds.
Well, at the end of the budget year in June, we tend to usually have extra money that we have budgeted for that we don't use. So I see this as probably gonna wash out if we don't use our stabilization fund, which, as I believed when we went out to the millage, it was for a rainy day fund, so in case something ever, emergency kind of thing happened. I guess it's just a matter of opinion on how it's written up.
Right.
And that just is my opinion on it, and that's what I think, or that's what I would like to see happen.
Anybody else? Mr. Resnick?
Yeah, I believe 20,000 was allocated in the capital plan.
Right.
For security cameras.
Underestimated in
Yeah,
terms of
it was
costs.
underestimated.
Right.
Yeah, so at the end of the year, it's still gonna come out anyway, so I'm fine with it coming out of the budget.
Yes, like I said, it's a
stabilization fund.
philosophical
Yeah.
question, I guess, is how I
Right.
put it, so.
Yeah. What, while we have Mr. Urquhart up here, what is the expected life for these new mechanisms?
It is a capital item. I would put it out there around 20 years.
20, okay, not within our 10-year planning phase,
Yeah,
but
it's
20, okay.
significantly longer because the majority of it is door hardware, the physical locks that are operated on the doors. Now, there is an electronic component to this that will have a shorter lifespan, but that is something that we probably budget outside of CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to award the bid of the replacement of the police department's police door access control system to the lowest qualified bidder, PCT Security of Clinton Township, Michigan, for the sum of $36,244 and associated budget amendment. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No. Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Ziegler?
Yes.
Councilmember Beagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
No.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnick?
Yes.
5 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation to award the bid for the installation of the city building door access control system to the lowest qualified bidder, PCT Security of Clinton Township, Michigan, for the sum of $44,845. Do I have a motion?
If I may, Your Honor?
Yes.
Just a technicality, if I could get a correction on that, because it should have read like the last one, and approve the associated budget amendment as well. I apologize for the
Sure,
oversight.
absolutely.
In the writing.
So to make the necessary budget amendment.
Right.
Do I have a motion?
Move. Support?
Discussion. Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, it's just the same thing about the funding mechanism. I just want to make that noted that I don't like to see that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Oh,
Mayor Ziegler?
yes.
Councilmember Beagle?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
No.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Resnick?
Yes.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
5 yes, 1 no.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is a recommendation for authorization to renew Microsoft Exchange Online for CDW-G for the sum of $4,258.60, and authorization for future renewals, assuming inflation-like annual increases in the expense. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Discussion? Okay, no discussion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 7, recommendation of the authorization to order project support services from ImageSoft Incorporated of Southfield, Michigan, in the amount not to exceed $7,400. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number, the last item on the agenda is recommendation for authorization to subscribe to on-base document imaging support from ImageSoft of Southfield, Michigan, in the amount of $4,500 per year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Second call to the public. I don't think anybody's come in the room since I read the rules to the public, so I'm not going to read them again. But the only caveat I will say is that this is your opportunity to come up and address any item. Doesn't have to be on the agenda, any item at all. Feel free to come up and make a public comment, and the second call to the public.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Reeds-Willett. I held off because I thought enough people had spoken for Sandro. But now that everything's over, this is my first council meeting, by the way. And a few years ago, Mayor Hinckley had thought, because I was involved in the community a lot, that I would be a great council member. Again, you know what? I have a business, actually 2 businesses, and I'm out of town a lot. One of the things that I noticed that none of the council members brought up, there was no reason not to accept Sandro. There was no, it was, hey, we don't have a policy, but there was no valid reason why he wouldn't make a good council member. So again, I ask if maybe our personal feelings or agendas got in the way. And really, it's not just to 3 and 3, because I get it, there's a divide, we all get it, right? Let's call it out for what it is. But he serves the community every day. They put their businesses here because they believe in the community. We all go to the restaurants, we all want support for the community. And I think it's very sad that we can't be big boys, right, and big girls like we were, and come together and make a decision. So, and everybody has to get reelected, correct? So we should all think about that too. Because what we do while we're in office carries into the election year. And as far as the 50% votes, 3 of the members were incumbents. My brother's the new judge. He beat an incumbent in 26 years. Okay, I know how hard it is to beat an incumbent. Very, very difficult, especially with 3 incumbents running who serve the community well. So I don't think that should be a knock against Sandro. He invested his time and money, and I'm here because, you know, not because we're best friends, but because I see he's involved in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I need to reintroduce myself?
No.
This is ludicrous. I don't know what you people are thinking. I am furious because you know what this means now? Special election. Well, Mr. Gottschall's so worried about money coming out for a door locking system from the stabilization fund. Where do you think that money is going to come from for a special election? Do tell. It's going to come from me, right? From me and the rest of these taxpayers? Is that right?
The election is in August.
I don't care when it is.
August?
I don't care when it is. Doesn't matter when it is. It's about how much it's gonna cost. Furthermore, former Mayor Hinckley made an excellent observation. For 8 months, we're all gonna be sitting here watching 6 people like you. Oh, this is special that it's televised tonight too. That is special. We're gonna be watching 6 people go 3 and 3 over every issue for the next 8 months. You need to remember that you're elected by the people, and we came out to vote. I came out to vote, I know I did, and I was one of the 600 that voted for Sandro. I just can't even believe what is going on here. So I think that it would behoove you to rethink the whole issue, put it back on the agenda for a different council meeting, and try to hash it out again. Because if this goes to a special election, that's just ridiculous. It's uncalled for. It's stupid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Haley Stevens. I am joining you from Rochester Hills, Michigan, where I am from. I am a resident of Oakland County, and I am here this evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, because I am a candidate for U.S. Congress in Michigan's 11th District. I had the pleasure of working with your previous mayor, Kevin Hinckley, when I served as Chief of Staff on President Obama's U.S. Auto Rescue. I was a White House appointee in the Department of Treasury. And when I think about why I am running for Congress, I think of Wixom. And I think of your tremendous story of economic development and resurgence. And certainly in these polarized and trying times, I believe in collaboration. I have spent my career as a economic development professional squarely focused on the manufacturing economy. I have had the privilege of working with many of the great businesses and manufacturing companies that came out of the recession and are located here. And so upon my election in November, I plan to continue this partnership in terms of working with you on an infrastructure bill and on further economic development. So again, my name is Haley Stevens. This is certainly not the last that you will see of me, but it is a real pleasure to sit here this evening and learn more about the issues facing and frankly the opportunities at hand for this great city of Wixom. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council this evening?
Lori Rich, you already have my address. I did try to take a few notes this time, though sloppily written. I won't say much. I wanted to speak to a couple of points that were addressed earlier at the earlier public call to the public. In terms of precedents, please don't forget that we do have a precedence. It has some pain points for me sitting up there. Nothing was ever a slam dunk. But there was some precedence on council of just simply following the mayor's recommendation, which one could have employed tonight. Please don't forget that I did urge you guys to give Sandro's consideration weight, not again necessarily something that is a done deal. Weight matters, but I also don't want you to forget to look at the individual. And if you have encounters with the individual, have formed an educated opinion about how they conduct their business, what kind of a human being they are, not speaking to any one person, I'm talking more history perspective, nobody's asking you to set that aside. We're asking you to combine perhaps weight and precedence with an informed, experienced opinion of the individual. Please don't forget the lost art of compromise. Sometimes I think you guys are out to make a name for yourselves and you're not necessarily interested in necessarily what's in the best interest of the city. You perhaps may be more interested in what's in your best reputation. I hate to burst your bubble, there aren't a lot of people out there interested in running for city council, in part because it's not a fun show. It has become a show, not necessarily a pleasant one to watch. Don't forget that there is, I think Robert's Rules of Order does afford an opportunity to get out of this dilemma of potentially costing the city a lot of money. And I believe that's a motion to reconsider. And I believe somebody on the prevailing side would have to raise a motion to reconsider the agenda item. I urge you to look at that tool. I urge you to both look at things from a short-term perspective and a long-term perspective. Short-term, getting somebody on the, getting an independent person, hopefully that's Sandro, who will be an independent individual, getting somebody on council to help position the city to not always have a 3-3 split on something where there's a difference of opinion or an allegiance to a matter of a consideration for the council. So again, hopefully that's Sandro, but the short-term perspective is get that seat filled. Long-term perspective, if you want to change the charter, if you want to put a policy in place, that is your long-term perspective. Please don't try to put that, don't try to mix the two together. It's a disservice to the city. If you wanted to have a long-term perspective, you should have thought of that a year ago. I also don't really want to say this, but knowing myself, I will. I did vote for Sandro, and Sandro may not want to know why I voted for him. I will vote. I will, unfortunately, to my own detriment, say why I voted for him, because he wasn't an incumbent. I feel that strongly that council is hampered and hindered and blindsided by their own personalities and their allegiance to a side, that anybody who is not one of the good old boys already in play, anybody will be better. Sorry. I don't really know him as an individual. I think that says it all. I sat up there for, 3 terms? Know you all real well. I don't think any of you are bad individuals. I don't think you really know yourselves, why you're sitting up there, why you ran, and what you hope to accomplish. But, we see you all as individuals, and we form our own opinions based upon your actions, not necessarily, I don't know, what you say around the house and how you treat your family and, what kind of person you think you are. We form our decisions about who you are based upon how you conduct business up here. And I think everybody would raise their hand and say, you're all lacking. You guys got to do something different. So please consider, and I've been saying that for years, nothing new. I mean, it's a Lori Rich speech. Is it not, Rich?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So, beg you, I've said this before many times over the past years, beg you to go home tonight, think about who you are, why you ran, what you want to accomplish, and really be honest with yourselves, even if you can't be honest with us. At least acknowledge to your own self who you are and why you're doing what you do. And because that's the only way to move forward and maybe possibly facilitate some change within yourself. And if you can facilitate change within yourself, you can facilitate change within city council, you can facilitate change perhaps for the city moving forward. Right now you're stuck, I don't appreciate it. So motion to reconsider is my advice for you, short-term, long-term. Separate out the 2 perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are you just stretching, or?
Dance performance, 2098 Hopkins Drive, Wixom, Michigan. It's a funny thing. This whole time we've known this has been coming, If it had ever happened in the city before, I'm sure that we would have went through this. I told some of you this story about my uncle that was a councilman for 5 terms. And his first thing that he would say would be, welcome to the council, but there's gonna be a day you don't like me, and I don't like you. Whoever was voted on to that council, he repeated that to him. But he said, when we sit up here, there's only one thing, Lewisburg, Tennessee. And you can go out in the parking lot and hate me. I come to these council meetings. We've got 3 gentlemen up here that were reelected. We have 2 that were before. Now, I didn't go very far to school. I went about 3 blocks, everybody else went 4. But if anyone gets 600 and some votes, and you guys got all of your votes, I don't understand this. In a company that I ran, 2 of them very successful, if all the employees had voted to have Mr. Kennedy as the next vice president of our company, that would be smart to say, okay, this is what the people want. So that's where I'm confused. It's 2 years. If he doesn't do a good job, he won't get reelected. But I think what she's mentioned, I mean, we need to start working as a team. You're all brand new. The only 2 that are the regular ones, whether you like each other or don't like each other, it really doesn't matter. I think what we need to start doing is working as a team. Every time I come to a council, half the night is the bickering. Okay? One of the employees here left and moved to another state, went to a council meeting, little tiny town, had all kinds of agendas, and it was over in 45 minutes because there was no bickering. And I think that's what needs to stop. We are trying to save Wixom money, so you're gonna have another election? But what are you gonna do when he gets 700 votes? I mean, we need to move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay, I'll close the,
No, you're not gonna close.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, darn.
Kevin Hinckley, 3250 Johanna Ware. Done this city a great disservice. A real big disservice. Now we gotta go 8 months, like I said, with this dilly-dilly stuff. Okay, regardless if it's Sandro or somebody else, you need 7 people. So, former Councilwoman Rich's idea of reconsidering, motion to reconsider, you need to do that. Okay? You look at 632 votes, Mr. Kennedy. I remember, I'm not picking on you because I'll go right on down the line, okay? The path to council, for the most of you, have been from another position that you were appointed to. Planning, Parks and Rec. You were before my time, so I don't remember. Library, okay? You ran, and you ran successfully. You ran successfully, okay? I appointed you to planning. I asked you, we're gonna have a vacancy, would you run for council? Yes. And you ran on our coattails, and we got you in. You remember that?
I remember you asked me to run, yes.
Yeah, okay. I asked you to run, and we helped you win. Okay. If I remember, okay, wasn't far short of 700 or 800 votes that got you in. Okay, because of the number of votes that Rich got that year and some other folks. So not far from 632. Okay, planning, we appointed him to planning. You all voted him in. Maybe not all of you, 2 guys weren't here. But you voted him in. Okay, that is a good path. But now you want to jeopardize us for the next 8 months. As I said, the most important thing that you do, and some of you have missed this from time, so I'm not going to pick on you, is our budget. And if we have a stalemate in the budget, because you want to play politics, and we've only got 6, then we don't have the tiebreaker. So you put the rest of us in jeopardy because 3 of you want to be this way and 3 of you want to be that way. Okay? It doesn't work for our city. Okay? All you got to do is look in Washington, D.C., right, Haley? Eh? This is the same BS that's going on with our country. Why are we bringing it here to the grassroots? We're supposed to be the other way, okay? We're supposed to be the way where we show Lansing, okay, that this is how we do it in the local community. Lansing hopefully might show Washington. But you're no different tonight than the bureaucrats in Washington that wanted to stronghold our country this week. Political BS. Okay, get over it. Reconsider and get it done and move our city forward. I never asked you to like me as mayor. Some of you I asked you to vote for me, and some of you did, some of you didn't. Okay? But you're smart guys. Don't get into this bickering and back and forth, and you know, it's like, I don't know, is McDonald still around?
Yeah,
You know,
he left.
if I say up, he says down. If I say right, he says left. I don't really give a crap about that. Okay? He's still a voter. He's still a person of this city. You know, he got beat, so what? Don't be that way. That's the way our city was, and you and me, we changed it to move it forward. Don't hold us hostage because, you know, of your feelings that maybe this, you want to play this bickering business, okay? Get the job done. That's what you were elected for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Monahan on Wixom Road, on Wade Hill, excuse me. I'd just like to say that a few years ago, I sold my business to my daughter, and I talked to her recently and talked to her about coming to Wixom and bringing the business here. Tonight, she signed the lease, and tonight I'm worried that I made the wrong mistake by saying, come to Wixom. Wake up, will you? Do the right thing. He deserves this honor of being up here. He's served this city in so many different ways. He works hard here in the city. His pulse is on this city. Not like all of you, because you don't all work here. But he has that. Wake up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? I'll close the second call of the public.
City manager's comments. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of items I'll highlight from what I had in my update this council meeting. City Clerk's Office information on dog licenses. We're now offering a 3-year license option for people with dogs that want to get them licensed. Slight discount from the yearly rate for that 3-year license. The second thing I'll mention, the Wixom DDA is hosting its second annual Wixom Derby Day event. And kind of excited about the fact that's going to fall on Saturday, May 5th in 2018. That's the Cinco de Mayo event, of course. So we'll be having that event for the second time. We're very successful in its first year. We're looking forward to more success in the second year. And the DDA has chosen to partner with a outstanding charity, Camp Casey, for sharing the proceeds from the event with. That agency is a group that specializes in bringing great and fun events to the lives of children suffering from cancer or serious blood diseases. And we're excited to be partnering with them on this Derby Day event in 2018. This last thing I'll mention, the community center renovation is proceeding, and the community center will remain closed for January and February. For those of you who have noticed, you might have seen the senior activities taking place in City Hall in room B to the back of this room. So we're having some adjustments to make while the renovation is going forward, but that's something we'll all get through. And we're looking forward to opening a newly renovated community center in March. And those are the only things I was going to highlight this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is council comments. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry that some of the people here, the 7 people that showed up, don't agree with the votes that were given up here. But that's part of our job, is to make opinions of what we think, or vote for what we think is right. And I have no regrets for that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gotcho.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Beagle.
Just want to thank Jeff Keel for his years of service to the DDA. You mentioned the community center renovations.
Yes.
Are we still on time? How are we looking? Any surprises?
Not anything I've been made aware of. I think we're on course, to have that open when we expect it to be open.
Okay, because just remember that the person who's the first person to rent the new place is a citizen of Wixom, and if
Yes, we're-
something's gonna happen, we need to let them know now, not
Right.
March 1st, all right?
That is something to be concerned about for anybody.
That's not me, so. Mayor Hinckley stealing my thunder on this one. Again, I'll say it again, I've said it before, we need to start having some budget hearings before the budget actually happens. There's a lot to cover, not only for this year, but future years, and I keep bringing it up, and it's falling on deaf ears, I think. I mean, we can do it at a 6 o'clock meeting before a council meeting and that, but I think we need to do that. And lastly, I'd like to congratulate Lieutenant Mike DeRochers on his promotion in the police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of folks here are concerned, that we're not working together up here. We're not getting along. We're making the process work. We're hashing things out, and we vet things. The application or the appointment process is not over. This is our first meeting. Would have been nice if it just went smooth and we were done, but it's not over, and we will do what's best for Wixom, and that's no statement on Mr. Grassi. I like him very much, but this won't go to a special election. We'll get this figured out, and we'll do it soon. Other than that, yes, congrats to Lieutenant DeRozier, and thank you again to Mr. Keel. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also would like to thank Jeff Keel for his many years of service here in our community. Again, I also feel that it's a travesty of what happened here tonight. I don't want to see a special election and the cost of it. I know there are some ways that we still have, 35, 36 days to get this resolved before it goes to special election, the way the charter's written. And again, I'm in support of taking a look at this in the two phases. That's the short-term approach, getting the seat filled, and the long-term issue with the way the charter is worded. So I'm very much in favor of that. I'd also like to see, I would like to see us also have a short goals session. I think we were remiss in not having done that in the last couple of years. And a lot of times, things like this can come up, whether it's a charter amendment. Do we think it's appropriate? Do we have a collection of things that need to be amended in the charter? And one thing we talked about was the millage cap. Something that was set in 1957 is maybe not appropriate for today. And take a look at those things in a goal setting session. So that, in addition to the budget sessions, I think are very appropriate. Also, I wonder if next meeting, if we're going to have any feedback on the airline trail grant process, if we could get an update on that as well. I don't know if it's too soon, but I thought it was January timeframe where.
We have a pretty good indication of where we're at. We don't have an official word, but we should find out shortly, but I can provide an update as to what it looks like.
Okay.
It's not official.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody who took the time out of their day to come out here this evening and give us input. That's one of the things that I think that I've noticed over the years that we're missing, and that's people that come to meetings. We don't get enough people to come here. We have budget hearings, we have these council meetings, and people don't come to voice their opinion very often. And I really appreciate the people coming out this evening and helping to try to give us some guidance and what their thoughts are on these things. I hope that it happens more. And I hope we do get more turnout. I wanted to also congratulate Mike DeRozier on his promotion to lieutenant. And he was sworn in the other morning, and it was nice to see a promotion to a worthy candidate. I guess the only thing I could say is relative to our discussion this evening, I have to apologize to Sandro. I thought that level heads would prevail here. I really believe in my heart that Sandro is deserving of the position, and I believe that's based on the fact that he came in fourth and had those votes that he had. And I have to apologize to you because I really believe that somebody up here would cooperate and see that it's the fair thing to do. Yeah, there is a split on this council. I don't know that it's because we want to have our own way, or I don't know what the reason is for it. Frankly, for the last 18 years, I've been sitting quietly at the end of the bench here and kind of observing it. Certainly, I observed that there was a split on council at that time, and I thought that, frankly, that when I became mayor, that would kind of dissipate somewhat, and that there was not the animosity that was present, but that has not happened. And I take it personally. I think that this vote that we just had, it has to have been either a vote against Sandro because of some animosity that these people have towards Sandro, or it has to be some animosity that these individuals have toward me. I take it personally, and I trust that we can revisit this, and I trust that we can, pardon me? I trust that we can, at some point, have another visit of this issue. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.